On today's show, the Cleveland Cavaliers have won 13 straight games to start the season. This one thanks to a huge fourth quarter by Donovan Mitchell as they beat the Philadelphia 76ers. We'll talk about that and so much more on today's edition of Locked On Cavs.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? My name's Danny Cunningham. You might know me from my time covering the Cleveland Cavaliers, places like my new Substack, The Inside Shot, 92.3 The Fan, Cleveland Magazine, and a number of other stops along the way. I want to say thank you to you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. You can find this show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star rating. Leave a nice review. Be a friend. Tell a friend about the Locked On Cavs podcast. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure a friend is subscribed as well. The show is also available on YouTube. Just search Locked On Cavs on YouTube. If you're watching this video right now, do me a favor. Hit that thumbs up button for me. Click subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content. A proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode, of course, is sponsored by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Also need to let you know, Locked On Cavs now has a newsletter introducing the Locked On Cavs daily newsletter. It is your one-stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. Sign up for free now at LockedOnDaily.com. That's LockedOnDaily.com, and start your day with the all-new free Locked On Cavs newsletter. The Cavs have won 13 straight. Each one seems a little bit different than the one before. This one, of course, a 114-106 win over the Philadelphia 76ers. Sixers did not have Joel Embiid, did not have Paul George, did not have Tyrese Maxey, did not have enough to get a win over the Cavaliers on Wednesday night. The Cavs won this game despite, again, not playing their best basketball. I don't think they've been playing their best basketball really since last Friday against Golden State. I think all three of the wins since then, they've had substandard performance. I think it's a fair thing to say. I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that this was their 13th game in 22 days. They have not had back-to-back days off yet. They're one of very few teams in the NBA that has played every other day or had back-to-backs. I cannot. The only other team that is in a similar situation is San Antonio, where they've played one less game than the Cavs, but they've had 3 back-to-backs and have not had consecutive days off yet. So I do think that explains part of it for the Cavs. But I want to talk about why the Cavs won, because that is much more important than why they've looked sluggish so far. The Cavaliers won this game because Donovan Mitchell stepped up when they needed Donovan Mitchell to step up. And I've talked about this throughout the year because they have not needed Donovan Mitchell to go out and be a superstar for the majority of this season. They've won a lot of games in blowout fashion. They've had Darius Garland to be the closer down the stretch in some of the other close games. But tonight, the Cavs needed Donovan Mitchell to show up late, and Donovan Mitchell showed up and showed out. That fourth quarter that he had was spectacular. He scored 13 points in the fourth quarter. 11 of those 13 came in the final 3 minutes. This was a close game down the stretch. Donovan Mitchell hit some pretty big baskets, and that was the biggest reason why the Cavs were able to win. I thought he was... Overall, he didn't shoot the ball well until the fourth quarter. In the fourth quarter, he was, I think, 5 of 6 from the floor. Before the fourth quarter, he was, I think, 4 of 15. It was not a great shooting night for him. That said, I do think he did a lot of things really well. He finished 1 assist shy of his first career triple-double. Of course, he did go assist hunting in the fourth quarter and apologized to Cavs fans for doing so in his post-game on-court interview with Serena Winters on FanDuel Sports Network, where he had what looked to be an open layup. He tried to throw the ball to an unsuspecting Evan Mobley in the corner as he tried to collect an assist. That turned into a turnover, which then that was really an opportunity to ice the game, and he passed up on it to try and triple-double hunt. But considering what his performance was, considering how good he's been, I think Cavs fans will probably be pretty quick to forgive him for that. But Mitchell in the fourth quarter was phenomenal. The Cavs struggled shooting the basketball in the second half for the most part. They have not been shooting the ball quite as well as they were earlier in the season lately. And I think some of that is certainly a product of tired legs, considering how many games they've played. But they needed somebody to step up. And we've seen Darius Garland step up a lot with this team when they've had close games in the fourth quarter, Garland has typically been the guy that's been the go-to guy for the Cavs. And what we learned Wednesday night, I don't necessarily think it's something we learned. I think it's something we've known that was just reinforced to us Wednesday night, is that the Cavs have two closers. The Cavs have two guys in their backcourt, both Mitchell and Garland, that are capable of single-handedly closing out games. We've seen Darius Garland do it a number of times, and I think it's been great that he's done it as many times as he has, because that is something that, coming off of the season he had last year, that is the best way, I think, to build that confidence back up and show himself and show the world that he's still an all-star caliber player. But we also know Donovan Mitchell's capable of doing this. And that's exactly what he did on Wednesday night. He stepped up when the Sixers wouldn't go away. And I do think Philly deserves a lot of credit for the way they played in this basketball game, where they didn't have Joel Embiid, they didn't have Paul George, they don't have Tyrese Maxey right now. Even Andre Drummond, I believe, was out with an illness. He did not play. They didn't have a lot of weapons. Now, full credit goes to Jared McCain. He was fantastic. Really, really good game for that rookie. But they wouldn't go away. They were a very pesky team, which you do see a lot of teams play like when they're undermanned. But this was a game that Cavs didn't have business losing. I thought that for a significant chunk of the game, they played down to Philly's level. But what I did think was interesting was this was kind of the reverse bad game for the Cavs that they've won. So think about some of their other ones where they've started with good energy and they've started, fast. They've had a good start to these games, and then things fall apart in the fourth quarter or third quarter. Like, think about that Brooklyn game, for example, where they really lost it at the end of the second, and it was even worse at the start of the third quarter. And then they find a way to flip that switch and turn it on. Well, the Cavs didn't really have it at the start. They had, I thought, a good spurt in the second quarter. And then in the third quarter was their best quarter of the night, which is not something we've seen. So maybe that is something that can be taken as a good sign coming out of tonight's win for the Cavs, is that maybe they just figured out something for those third quarter blues that they have been plagued by really for the majority of the season. But I thought tonight was a prime example of this team having two closers, because what tonight from Donovan Mitchell is going to do, and what the early season stardom from Darius Garland has done, is it is going to make the Cavs so much more difficult to defend down the stretch of games. Part of the reason why Donovan Mitchell was able to go off the way he went off at the end of this game is because of what Darius Garland has done over and over and over again against teams. Donovan Mitchell is more difficult to guard when Darius Garland has it going. He does. He absolutely is. Now, Darius Garland wasn't needed necessarily in clutch time tonight because Donovan Mitchell was that good, but Darius Garland had the best game. Or actually, I don't know that I can say that. It might be Donovan Mitchell, even though he didn't shoot the ball great until the fourth quarter. But Darius Garland was really, really good tonight too. That is something that I does think deserve a mention here in the first segment, because he finished with 25 points on 10 of 16, 5 boards, 6 assists. He was really, really good. That is something that needs to be mentioned here because the story is going to be Donovan closing it out. And it should be Donovan closing it out, because this was a game the Cavs were in danger of losing. And Donovan Mitchell stepped up the way a superstar stepped up. I've been telling you guys that this was not something to forget about, that when the Cavs need Donovan Mitchell to go out and be Donovan Mitchell, he's still capable of it, despite the fact they haven't needed him to do it a ton so far this year. Wednesday night was a prime example of him stepping up and saying, you know what? We haven't had it tonight, because they didn't. But this team can still get on his back for a spurt, and he can take them where they need to go. That is exactly how that fourth quarter went for the Cavs. Donovan Mitchell, the last 3 minutes were all Donovan Mitchell. All Donovan Mitchell. It wasn't perfect. I think he would probably like to have that errant pass to Evan Mobley back if he could. But other than that, it's hard to complain about anything Donovan Mitchell did down the stretch on Wednesday night. It was everything you want to see from a superstar player down the stretch of a game. It was everything you want to see. I also thought it was really important that Donovan Mitchell did a lot of other things. Even when he wasn't shooting the basketball relatively well, I think he could sense that the Cavs needed more than just scoring from him. On a night where Jarrett Allen was questionable with a leg injury, he did play. According to Chris Fedor, Evan Mobley had an illness and was a game time decision. Of course, he did play too and was a team high plus 17 in his minutes. But the Cavs needed more than just the scoring from Mitchell on Wednesday night. And he provided it 9 assists, 13 rebounds. He did a little bit of everything. I thought he was solid defensively. Donovan Mitchell stepped up in a way that wasn't just scoring, but then down the stretch, he was able to take the Cavs home by scoring the basketball, by hitting open shots, by making plays for others. Donovan Mitchell was able to do all of that stuff. He was I think the first 3 quarters, Darius Garland was the best player on the floor. And then the fourth quarter tonight, Donovan Mitchell was the best player on the floor. And the Cavs needed him to do that. I think the Cavs needed to see him do that too. Because a game like this, even though it's a game that if the Cavs are playing their best, isn't a close game and we don't have to talk about this, we're talking about another Cavs blowout victory. Or even if they're fresher, I think is probably more accurate. But now we've seen 2 guys on the Cavs just absolutely take over games down the stretch and close them out. That makes life for their opponents much more difficult. They are a much more difficult team to deal with. They're going to become even more of a challenge to defend by their opponents. They absolutely are. And part of the reason for that, they have one of the best backcourts in the NBA in Donovan Mitchell, in Darius Garland. And they're going to need those guys moving forward because at 13-0, there's no question there's a target on their back. We'll talk about that next right here on Locked On Cavs. Today's show is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time is my go-to ticket marketplace. Game Time should be your go-to ticket marketplace. One of the things that I love about Game Time is that you can toggle on the all-in pricing feature. I don't want to be surprised. I don't want to be bombarded at the last minute with taxes and fees. So one of the things that I look for when I'm buying tickets, whether it's to a game, to a concert, to a show, whatever it is that Game Time has, I don't want to be bombarded with those things last minute. I want to know what I'm going to be paying up front. That is something that's important to me. Game Time allows me to have that because you can toggle on the all-in pricing feature, and then you're not going to be surprised. You're going to know the entire time what you're going to be paying. That's something that's important. Another thing about Game Time that I like, when you're selecting your seat, you can click on a seat. Maybe you're not sure about the view, and you can look exactly what your view of center court or, the pitcher's mound during baseball season, the 50-yard line with football right now, or the stage if it's concert. They'll show you what your view is going to be. You're not going to be surprised when you get there. Oh man, there's a pole in my way. I can't see. This is a terrible seat. Game Time's not about that. They take the guesswork out of the ticket buying experience. So if that all sounds good to you, and it should, you can take the guesswork out of the ticket buying experience with Game Time. So download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNBA. That's LOCKEDON NBA for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. Thank you again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. You can find the show anywhere you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star rating. Leave us a nice review. Be a friend. Tell a friend about the Locked On Cavs podcast. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure a friend is subscribed as well. Also, the show is available on YouTube. If you're watching this video right now, welcome. Do me a favor. Hit that thumbs up button for me. Click subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content. So right now, something that I do think was very evident on Wednesday night in Philadelphia is the Cavs have a target on their back. They became the 6th team in NBA history to go to 13-0 to start a season. It's rarefied air. I believe the last time it happened was the Warriors in 2015-16. The time before that was the Dallas Mavericks, I think in 02-03, maybe 03-04, but I think 02-03. So it's a really rare thing, which means now, no matter who the Cavs are playing, no matter how bad, how good, it doesn't matter. They're getting everybody's best shot. I thought you saw that on Monday night against Chicago. I thought the Bulls played really, really hard in that game. Now, I don't think the Bulls stink. I don't think they're just a really bad basketball team. I don't think they're good, but I don't think they're that bad either. They're the Bulls. They're mediocre. That's who they are. That's what that franchise is. The Sixers obviously did not have their 3 best players, but the Sixers wanted to be the team that ended the Cavs winning streak. I thought that was very clear in the way they played. I thought they played hard. I thought they, at least in the first half, dictated the pace of this game and got the Cavs to play down to their level and play at the pace that they wanted to play at, which I don't think is a good sign. That we've seen that now a couple of times. And it'll go back on Friday when they play Chicago again, because the Bulls are going to want to play super fast, as we saw on Monday. But I thought this game looked a lot like Saturday's game against the Brooklyn Nets. Maybe not quite as physical as that game was on Saturday, but it was definitely slower than I think the Cavs want to play. You're not going to right now, and even the Sixers were on the second night of a back-to-back. And I understand that it was a lot of role players playing because their star players in Embiid and George specifically played last night. I know Maxi's out for a few weeks right now with a hamstring injury, but all these guys played last night. That was a very easy spot for Philadelphia to just roll over and say, you know what? You guys are 12-0. We don't have our best players. We played last night. We lost the game last night. We're not very good. We don't feel good about ourselves right now as a team. We're just going to roll over. We're not going to give this one our best shot. I actually think if the Cavs would have lost the game, maybe just say they don't have that comeback against Brooklyn on Saturday. So say they came in 11-1 to Wednesday night. I think this may have been a blowout. I don't know that Philadelphia tries quite as hard or has as good of a game as they had if the Cavs are not unbeaten. And I think that's what we're going to keep seeing until the Cavs have a loss. Friday night, they play Chicago. Chicago's coming off a really big win on Wednesday against the Knicks. And maybe Friday's a little bit different because it's an NBA Cup game, because that game matters for a little bit more than just a regular season game. But you know what you're going to see? You're going to see the best shot Chicago has, because not only do they want to win that game for NBA Cup purposes, and not only, like, those guys are professionals too, obviously they want to win every game, but there's going to be a pride that every organization takes in being the team that ends the Cavs winning streak. It will end at some point. I don't know when. But until they lose, they're going to get every single team's best shot. And I also kind of get the feeling that when this team does lose a basketball game, they're going to be able to take a deep breath, and it's almost going to feel like a weight lifted off their shoulder. I definitely think that this is something that you can see weighing on them a touch. Now, obviously, it hasn't cost them, but I do think that it's in their minds. And I don't know that they're playing their best basketball, partially because, again, this team looks tired. They've played 13 basketball games in 22 days. That's a ridiculous stretch. And on Friday, it becomes 14 basketball games in 24 days. And Sunday, it becomes 15 basketball games in 26 days. And then Tuesday, it's 16 basketball games in 28 days, and then 17 in 29 days. That's a really, really tough stretch. And I think that, combined with the fact that they have a target on their back, they're not catching anybody on an off night right now. Maybe you could say they did the Warriors. The Cavs might have also just played the best half of basketball I've ever seen. But for the most part, they're getting every team's best shot. And that's not going to change. That's going to happen on Friday with Chicago. I promise you. The Bulls are going to come out and they're going to play well. And the Cavs are going to have to play better than they did on Monday to win that game. Now, being at home, I think, will be a big boost for them. Maybe having tomorrow off, which they need. They need every off day they can get. But the Bulls are going to give them everything they have. And if the Cavs find a way to win on Friday and push this winning streak to 14, the Charlotte Hornets on Sunday are going to give them every single thing they have. The Charlotte Hornets are going to want to come into Cleveland and be the team that ends this winning streak. If that doesn't happen, I promise you, Tuesday night in Boston, that Celtics team is going to treat that game against the Cavaliers like it's a finals game. That is what the Cavs are now up against. They are the hunted. They're not the hunters right now. They are the hunted. They have a huge target on their back, but they've got the guys that they can get through it. What we're seeing right now from this backcourt, from Darius Garland, from Donovan Mitchell, I don't know, and I might talk about this more on tomorrow's show. I don't know how many backcourts in the NBA right now I would take over Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell. Those two have been absolutely phenomenal to start the season. Obviously, there's been 3 weeks of the season. Each of them have a Player of the Week award in the Eastern Conference to their name. But right now, and I think it's trending towards both of these guys are going to be all-stars. And I was wrong about Darius Garland. Now, I spent a good chunk of the summer buying land on Darius Garland Island, buying stock in Darius Garland, believing in the bounce back that was forthcoming. And I feel good about that. But I also several times talked about how I didn't think he could be an all-star because Donovan Mitchell's a lock to be on the all-star team. And it's really difficult to have two guys in the same backcourt make an all-star team. But I think the Cavs are trending towards being good enough to justify that. And Darius Garland has, you can make the case, outplayed Donovan Mitchell so far this year. There's a case that Darius Garland has been the best player on the Cavs this season so far. And if you get that from Darius Garland, this is the result that you get. You get the Cavs being the best team in the NBA. You get the Cavs having a historic offense. You get the Cavs getting off to a historic start. So right now, and I have to look into it more, and I'll do that for tomorrow's show most likely. But right now, I don't know how many, if any, backcourts I would rather have than Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell because the chemistry is there. The way they work together, I think, is so much improved from last year and even the first year when they were together. And I did think it worked. This, I think, is a better version than even I thought we'd see of this backcourt. We're also getting a really good version of the coaching staff. Kenny Atkinson, once again, pulled a magic lever that worked because it seems like that's all he does. We'll talk about that next right here on Locked On Cavs. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel is America's #1 sports book. I tell you that all the time because it's true. And right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 back in bonus bets if you win. Just got to win that first $5 bet. Maybe you put $5 on the Cavs on the money line to beat Philadelphia on Wednesday night. If you're a new customer at FanDuel and you did that, you have $150 in bonus bets coming your way. And right now, the FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL, NBA, NHL. Hockey is a thing. I don't know anything about it, but I know it's a thing. You can place live bets on all those all in one place right in the FanDuel Sportsbook app. Plus, when you get a hunch in the middle of those games, you can check the latest stats, view live play-by-play, so much more. The same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. FanDuel does have some stuff, and I don't know that it will be up right now because games are still going on, but they have had the first team to beat the Cavs odds. They've had odds in that. That's not up as I am recording this right now, but check for that on Thursday because you can bet on who you think is going to be the first team to beat the Cleveland Cavaliers. Maybe it'll be the Bulls, maybe it'll be the Hornets. Last I checked, the favorites were the Boston Celtics next Tuesday. FanDuel thinks the Cavs are going to get to 15-0 before going to Boston. So we'll see what that happens. But that's a fun little thing. Or you can actually bet on the Cavs going 82-0. Toss a dollar down. Doesn't seem like the one. It could happen, right? Maybe it could happen. It can happen. But like I said earlier, if you're a new customer at FanDuel, you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. So head on over to FanDuel.com. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports book partner of the NFL. Thank you again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. You can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star rating, leave a nice review, be a friend, tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. Also, if you're watching the show on YouTube right now, hit that thumbs up button for me, click subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content. So Kenny Atkinson, I thought had another really good night for the Cavs. And Kenny Atkinson, it seems like only has really good nights. And I know it's easy to compliment a coach in victories but that you can get out-coached in wins. That does happen. But I don't think we've seen Kenny get out-coached yet this year. And that has been one of the best things about this Cavs team. Like, he has, I think, gone with his gut quite a bit. I appreciate how refreshingly honest he's been when asking him, like, basketball-specific questions. I know after the Brooklyn game, I asked him about the small lineup they went with. That was Garland, Mitchell, Jerome, LeVert, and Evan Mobley at the 5. And he basically said, well, nothing was working, so I had to try something. And I kind of think we got another, and I'm as you can see, I did not go to Philly. I'm not in Philly right now recording this. I didn't talk to Kenny after the game. But I kind of, from watching the game, I thought we got another, well, nothing was working lineup from Kenny Atkinson, because we had another lineup, and this is like the third or fourth game in a row where we've had a lineup like this that had not played together before. Tonight, Craig Porter Jr., Isaac Okoro, Ty Jerome, Jarrett Allen, and Darius Garland. That is as small as the Cavs can get. Maybe the only thing that could be smaller is Dean Wade at the 5. But right now, everything Kenny Atkinson does, it just works. There was a possession in, I believe it was the fourth quarter, and this was a one possession thing, and it's something I want to ask about. But it looked to me like Kenny Atkinson broke out a box and one defense where the 4 guys, I believe it was Donovan, Darius, Evan, and Jarrett, and Karis LeVert was the 5th guy on the floor. And Karis LeVert appeared to be in man-to-man coverage on Jared McCain, who McCain went off. He had like 34 points for the Sixers. He was really, really good at tonight. He was the biggest reason why the Sixers almost won that game. But everyone else looked like they were in a zone, like in a 2-2 zone. And Karis LeVert was chasing around Jared McCain. You don't see that very often in NBA games. Kenny Atkinson has not been scared to get creative. He's almost like a mad scientist on the bench right now. But everything he's doing works. Everything he's doing just seems to work. I don't know when that magic's going to run out. I don't know if it's going to run out. But again, we saw a lineup that had never played together, and it goes out, and it's fine. We've seen lineups go out that had never played together before, and they win games for the Cavs. It's been unbelievable what Kenny Atkinson has been able to get out of this team. It's been wildly impressive, and I don't know that this is ever going to stop. I have been so impressed with Kenny Atkinson as a coach so far. I think offensively, his system has been great for the Cavs. Defensively, I think they're getting a little unlucky. And the one thing I do want to dig into in the coming days is whether or not the Cavs are getting unlucky with opponent 3-point field goal percentage, or if there's an issue with their defense. Because lately it seems like, in Philadelphia came into this game, I think bottom 5 in the league in 3-point field goal percentage. They have not been a very good 3-point shooting team all season long. Just, I said the same thing about the Bucks. AJ Green hit 7 threes against the Cavs. Jose Alvarado hit 7 threes against the Cavs. Like, we have seen some outlier 3-point performances. I don't know if that is because something the Cavs are doing defensively, or if it's just luck. Now, the Sixers only shot 32%, but they made 14 threes. They took a ton of threes, which was sort of always how they were going to be able to win this game. They were going to have to really hoist from deep. So that is the one area of concern I have right now. But other than that, it's hard to be anything other than super impressed with what we've seen from Kenny Atkinson. He's been phenomenal so far, and just he pulls all the right levers seemingly every single night. I do want to say thank you to you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. Like I said earlier, you can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star rating. Leave us a nice review. Be a friend. Tell a friend about the Locked On Cavs podcast. Also, the show is available on YouTube. So if you're watching this right now, do me a favor, hit that thumbs up button for me, click subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content. I will be back tomorrow talking once again about the best team in basketball.